One of the things that's really important to adult toy collectors is scale. We want our figures to work with each other. We want a Ninja Turtle to be able to fight the Incredible Hulk and not look weird at odd scales. And one toy line from the last 20, 30 years has really gone above and beyond to define a scale, the 6-inch scale. That's Marvel Legends. Almost any 6-inch figure that's come out since this line premiered has really been compared to it. In fact, we've gotten to the point that there's almost a term called Marvel Legendizing an IP, meaning you're going to make a Marvel Legends compatible toy. Now, why is this? What's so great about Marvel Legends? I mean, the early figures don't exactly stand up to current ones, even the scale is off. But that was where the innovation came from. The very, very first highly articulated figure was the Spider-Man Classics line put out by Toy Biz, eventually becoming Marvel Legends. This was the brainchild of Jesse Falcon, who has been a brand manager and a director over at Marvel for quite a few decades now. And one of the things he noticed was those 12-inch military figures had very complicated accessories, more or less, meaning the accessories actually articulated or had snap-on parts. You could do more than just put the accessory in a character's hand. You could actually turn knobs or twist barrels or, plug in clips for cartouches for bullets, etc. So this whole concept of putting articulation into small things literally left and became an articulated Spider-Man action figure. And for the first time, we were now getting a Spider-Man that you could pose to look like the comic books, to look like right out of a panel, if you will. Previous to this, most action figures had your kind of standard 5 points of articulation. Yeah, you did have some superposable versions with some ball joints here and there, but they were really more designed for kid play as opposed to, comic book accuracy. And it wasn't just the heroes like Spider-Man. The Classics line that was put out by Toy Biz included the whole family of characters, which is logically why it sort of spilled over and beyond just the world of Spider-Man became Marvel Legends very quickly. And the sculpted bases, the highly articulated figures, the details and paint, while heavily influenced by McFarlane's Spawn line, brought a lot more play value because of the articulation. McFarlane's figures, while they had a lot of detail and a lot of paint-ups, lacked in articulation, which Marvel Legends and Spider-Man Classics before it were able to bring to the table, and that was the huge, huge innovation. We never had action figures that could pose exactly like we saw a screenshot or a comic book panel. And now, because of the idea of adding accessory-like articulation to an action figure, we could now do this. And to say Marvel Legends has a long shadow or a long influence over the toy industry is a understatement, because the idea of swappable heads, articulated hands, articulation in all of the joints, the elbows, the knees, shoulders, putting these on ball joints as opposed to 5 points of articulation, you can directly link this back to Marvel Legends, and it's why we now have this term of saying, I want a Marvel Legends version of X. And that can apply to anything from DC Comics to Ninja Turtles to Star Trek to Star Wars. I mean, the Black Series line for Star Wars, is constantly called a Marvel Legends version of Star Wars. The name of the Marvel Legends brand has now become an actual noun to describe the form factor of a highly articulated 6-inch figure. And this has become the standard pretty much across the board, that if you're off of the 6-inch scale, unless it's a Build-A-Figure, well, you're kind of playing in your own world. That kind of is what's going on with some of those 7-inch lines. And you can see how much the 6-inch scale has influenced almost every toy company. You can clearly see kind of pre-Marvel Legends and post-Marvel Legends action figures at market. Before Marvel Legends, there was articulation. Figures tended to be more 5.5 inches tall. Post-Marvel Legends, well, we have a standard that has influenced the entire industry as far as number of articulation points and inches. Sort of a 6 inches 1-to-1 for 6 feet tall. A inch equals a foot. And this has gone through IP across the toy industry. You can now get almost any character from any intellectual property, from any content, in a 6-inch highly articulated form factor, which is now also referred to as the Marvel Legends version. So you could say, He-Man, well, I want a Marvel Legends version of it, and that now exists. Before Marvel Legends, He-Man figures had 5 points of articulation. After that, over 30, and correctly scaled. So, well, granted, Classics was 6.5 inches, but that was deliberate to make them slightly bigger. So it all comes down to the idea of creating a whole world of toys in one scale, and how much Marvel Legends pushed, influenced, and solidified 6-inch as the definitive scale for modern toy collectors. Being able to have different characters from different IP face off against each other is something you really only see in fan films or artwork sold at, conventions. You're never actually going to see, Batman holding a lightsaber fighting a shark. But with toys, you can do that. With toys, Chewbacca can ride a chipmunk and fight Nazis. Not something you're going to see in a movie, and that tends to be the power of toys and having a consistent scale so that different IP can play together and, well, let's face it, for adult collectors, display together, unless you're actually taking those figures out and, having them talk. Nothing wrong with that. So between the scale and the added articulation, we now had a form factor that was going to become definitive for any IP. But it's also a little costly. There's some other innovations that Marvel Legends brought which should also be well discussed, namely things like head swaps, as well as a continued focus on improvement. Before Marvel Legends, most figures were kind of one and done. Post Marvel Legends, the idea that you can improve a character, release the same version of a character over and over again, but get better, is something that wasn't really part of the toy industry prior to Marvel Legends. It was, okay, here's your Green Goblin, here's your Hobgoblin, go. Well, now, every couple of years, we get an updated version. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. We've had improvements like the removal of pin joints lately, which is absolutely a major upgrade, especially for adult collectors who don't want to look at those annoying pins sticking out that have color mismatches. But again, things like having new swappable heads that are reverse compatible against older figures. This is a big thing that Marvel Legends has helped shape the toy industry to the point that, yes, you can now describe the form factor as the name of the brand. And that's a rare thing. And honestly, I appreciate everything they've brought to the table because so much of my toy line and collection is influenced by this. I hope you enjoyed this video, and it was an interesting look at the long-term influence of Marvel Legends and how much one toy line can absolutely shape an entire industry. And as prices continue to soar, we'll see how long that can keep up. Thanks for watching, thanks for sharing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.